Welcome to the NSA Michigan CSP panel. Dun, dun, dun. We have an amazing group of people here. I have some of my very favorite go-to people. The purpose of today is to talk to CSPs. Some of us are seasoned, and one of us, April, is brand new, although she's a seasoned speaker. And the goal is to understand why should everyone have their CSP? How do they leverage it? What are they doing now differently because of the pandemic? What are they working on, in other words? And then advice to other members. And so we're going to lead this as a guided discussion. And please do ask questions in the chat. If you, you're welcome to have your sound on unless there's something noisy. If you want, you can just have any question in the chat, put it in, and we'll be monitoring. And Bonnie and April are working as the meeting monsters instead of monitors. We call them monsters, making sure that everything goes smoothly. All right, so let me start with the idea of expertise. We have an amazing group in the NSA Michigan chapter. Many people are experts. Some of them are new at speaking. Some of them are super seasoned, but so many of them are already experts, and that's the foundation. You, at the very least, have to be an expert, and we have a panel of experts here. They have to be eloquent, they have to be ethical, and they have to know about enterprise. They have to make their business into a speaking business. So let's start with one of my personal heroes. This is Dr. John Molidor. He's a hero for me for a variety of reasons. One of which is I just think he has a great brain, and I love his shirts. He can turn any topic into something that makes sense. And when there are a lot of people who speak in circles, he's like the hurricane. He starts in the big whirlwind and he gets to the eye where it's calmer and more powerful. To me, he's that eye, helping bring clarity to the most amazing topics. So he grew up as one of 10 kids, and we all know that if you've got a lot of kids in your family, you learn very quickly about communicating at the dinner table. He was the NSA Michigan president. He's been with the chapter for 30 years, and he is currently the president of the Global Speakers Federation, which is a huge deal. We're honored to have him as part of the chapter. I can't believe that he's on the line. So he has a great line. So Dr. Molidor, if you wouldn't mind starting, you have a great line about why everyone should have their CSP. Sir, if you wouldn't mind kicking off with that.
So one of the things that we wanted to talk about in terms of getting the CSP is that if we wish to elevate the profession of speaking, I think we need to look at how all speakers can become certified. It's only through a process of certification, which has some rigor, has both internal and external review, do we elevate the profession. And in doing so, we send a couple messages. We send one externally to those individuals that might hire us, that we've gone through some type of process that indicates that we've reached some level of competency. Internally, we send a message within our own profession to other individuals who hold the CSP that we too now have achieved this status. And then I think the third area is personal. You can very easily take the 4 E's and then map out a system of professional development that will allow you to grow as a professional. I don't think this is so elite. It was never set up that way. It was a competency-based certification that basically says all members of the National Speakers Association, and that includes then NSA Michigan, should strive for becoming certified in this profession. So I think that tries to frame it in a little bit of how one can become an expert in the field and then get their certification. Thank you.
So all of you can take his advice, and I'm excited to have all of you get your CSP in the near future. We're all here to help you do that. Next, we have Dr. Shireen McHenry, who's a people IQ expert, and she's amazingly fun and gets to the heart of people issues in terms of how people solve problems and she's amazing in terms of she understands people in groups. So Shireen, please help us understand something about the CSP and expertise.
I think I remember sitting at an NSA Michigan meeting was the first time I heard about it. And for me, if I'm going to do anything, I want to be at the top of my game. And so the minute that I heard about it, I'm like, I'm going to get that CSP. And one day I'm going to get that Hall of Fame. And I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to do it. And the CSP is it's very quantifiable. And it's set out by the National Association. And if you know the rules and you keep your records, it's doable. It's very doable. But I'll tell you later on in the presentation what you don't want to do that I did, which made it like a nightmare to pull together my information. But it's very doable. And for me, again, I felt in the beginning when I was at NSA and NSA Michigan, I kind of felt like a wannabe, like I didn't belong. Kind of hear the catch in my voice because I wanted my dreams so badly to speak full time. And for me, it was a real benchmark of I've done what I set out to do. I make a living as a speaker and I am recognized as a certified speaking professional. And I'm very, very proud of that accomplishment.
As well you should be. By the way, I never doubted you.
Ah, thanks.
All right, and next is Joyce Weiss, also CSP. And she kicks conflict to the curb. And anyone who's listened to her knows that she does manage conflict well. She identifies with it, doesn't get dirty handling it, but somehow leaves with peer bullying, micromanagers, and anyone who isn't excellent paying attention to her. And she's got a lot to offer. So Joyce, why don't you speak to the issue of one of the other E's, whether it's ethics or enterprise or eloquence. Which one would you like to speak on, ma'am?
Okay, go push my button. I talk about conflict. Well, let me tell you about ethics. Couple months ago, I was giving a program. Actually, it was more than a couple months ago. Hello, and it was on "Take the Ride of Your Life," which is one of my books. So another speaker comes up, who's an attorney, not from NSA, and she said, "I love your exercise. I love your book premise so much. I'm going to copy it and do the whole thing." So let me tell you about ethics. I'm married to a lawyer. I have someone who is a seasoned attorney and speaker who's telling me she loves my stuff and she's going to take it. So she and I had an interesting conversation. She said, "I can do it. It's not trademark." And I said, "There's a difference between ethics and legality." So if we're talking about ethics, especially for the newbies, we don't steal other people's information. It's so tempting at the beginning because you don't have your stories yet. But then eventually you do get your stories. You find your voice and you use your information. But I think that's a big one for me because I see so many people still doing that.
Well, that's for sure. I think that April now being our newbie, she just got her CSP. Everyone clap for her. Yay, CSP, we're so proud of you. She's internationally known as a change management expert, and she has all these initials after her name that prove that she is certified as a change management expert. I've never seen so many initials in my life for that, except for Dr. John Molidor. Other than that. So April, why don't you talk about one of the other ones, the other E's, whether it's eloquence or enterprise?
Well, I think I'll talk a little bit about enterprise. I'm really happy, really pleased to have achieved my CSP this year. And you know, even though it wasn't quite what we had in mind, you know, what I had envisioned the moment to be like, you know, because we're all locked home, but I had such a wonderful experience at our virtual conference this year. And I think in terms of enterprise, I I want to encourage people not to give up because, you know, I've had some obstacles like having to, you know, have a job and raise children. I shouldn't call my children obstacles, but, you know, that takes you kind of off the path of pursuing a certification like CSP, where you have to have so many presentations in a period of time. And, you know, being an employee for a number of years prior to the change in the rules made it impossible for me to reach that CSP status. So I kept pursuing the CSP. I always wanted to pursue it because I felt like it was the highest certification I could achieve as a speaking professional. Along the way, I received my certified change management professional, my project management professional certifications, but neither of those had the same sort of appeal for me as the CSP. The CSP was like, that's the thing, that's what I want. And so I was just thrilled. I think that enterprise-wise, it's really important to build your business to take hits. I had a robust business in like the early 2000s, had to step away, take a job, raise kids. But then I was able to come back in 2017, I believe. I started, you know, seeing the light that I could get back to speaking full time. And then I just really decided to run my business in a different way. I've tried to make sure that I've always had, you know, 2 levels of business, like a contract in place, a state contract in place to kind of support things so that I'm able to free myself up to really choose the speaking engagements that I want to pursue. And so I think if you are worried that, you know, you have a full-time job or a part-time job and how the heck are you ever going to get there, you know, don't worry, because you can get there. You will, you know, start to put the business pieces in place to support yourself so that you're able to then move forward and take that big step into your professional speaking career where you are full-time as a speaker and doing what you really love to do. So that would be my 2 cents about enterprise and about making sure that you stay true to your vision and your goal and keep moving toward it.
Okay, John Mulador.
So for those of you on this call who are not CSPs and are thinking about it, here's a little quick history on this. Long time ago, NSA had 8 competencies. I happened to get in a major discussion and a semi-argument with a past president of NSA. My premise was, how can we call ourselves a profession if people can't name the 8 competencies?
Mm-hmm.
He said, oh no, people know what the 8 are. So I said, well, I'll make you a bet. So we set up a little deal that if someone called in NSA headquarters, at the end of their call, we would ask them, do we have competencies? Yes or no? Most people got that. They got the sense that yes, we did. Then we said, do you know how many we have? That number ranged from 3 to 14. We said, no, we have 8. Can you name the 8? Less than 0.5% could name all 8 correctly. And I think the only person that could was probably the person that originally came up with them. So in a typical past president fashion, he said, well, that's all fine and good. Why don't you go do something about that? I said, okay. So I started doing some research. Many of you know I come out of a medicine background. Medicine had just then set up competencies for all specialists in medicine. Didn't matter if you're a surgeon, a pediatrician, family medicine doc, you basically had to show competencies in the same areas. So I thought, well, let's see if we can create a similar model. So I came up with the 4 E's. I took Mark Sanborn, who was a past president. Back then, presidents had themes. His was expertise to the power of eloquence. So I thought that's a good starting point. I took those 2 E's. I added 2 more, enterprise and ethics. Then we basically, because of background, said, all right, this is pretty straightforward. A professional speaker is someone who brings expertise in an eloquent fashion is part of a business or enterprise and does so as an ethical or in an ethical manner. If you're missing any one of those, we welcome you to NSA Michigan. We welcome you to NSA because then basically we can help teach you or help you get all those E's. So once that was done, we looked at the certification process. So although this is being recorded, I will go on record as saying this. It seemed like a frequent speaker/flyer program that if you could speak enough times, you could get a CSP. There was no peer review. There was technically no external review. It basically was if you could speak enough times and earn enough money, you could get the CSP. This made no sense to me because it also was not tied to the competencies. So a brand new CSP process was then created. And I'll let you figure out who was probably behind that and did that. So the process now is much more streamlined. It basically says a speech is a speech is a speech, and that you need to have external evaluations. So that would be the people that hired you, your clients would then fill an online evaluation, need at least 20 of those. We then have internal evaluation. This is where you submit an unedited or loosely edited video that then other CSPs using a standardized rating form then evaluate your video. So you have to go through a very number of stages to get the CSP, but it is so much more streamlined than what it was. It's very straightforward. And I'm sure all the CSPs on this panel will give you some hints or suggestions on record keeping, keeping track of your information, and then some of the nuances. But basically now our competencies are tied to our certification process. The thinking is that we, remember I referred to sort of you could do this for external reasons why other people might hire you. But first was let's clean up the internal so that rather than just being some type of club designation, is that we actually have some rigor to the evaluation. And I think April and Shireen will tell you, having been the two most recent individuals going through it, it's very, very different than in the old days. Because the old days, you never submitted a video. It was you just had to show that you spoke enough and you earned enough, and pretty much you got it. Not anymore. And so I think it's starting to move much more in the direction of a true certification process. Once we get that done, then we can say to the external world, if you're going to hire somebody that has a CSP, then pretty much we can guarantee as an association that they've gone through a pretty rigorous process, passed through different evaluations, and that we feel very comfortable saying to you, this is a certified speaking professional. And so that's kind of the background and history, how we got to this point. So thank you for that opportunity to tell you a little bit about some background. Thanks.
Thank you for what you did. And one of the things that really helped me was a speech is a speech is a speech. I have deep content knowledge, and so it didn't make sense that a day's worth that had maybe 3 or 4 different standalone speeches would only count as one. And when you all clarified that, you made a pathway for me as a speaker who, again, can go very deep and is often asked to speak multiple times at anything that I do. And I want to say thank you for that.
All right, so let me have 2 of you volunteer to speak on what is the benefit to you of having a CSP?
Well, handout.
Yes, ma'am.
The benefit, it is a competitive advantage. I mean, even though the rest of the world may not know about the CSP,
Yet.
we speakers do, but a lot of clients do now. They absolutely do. And if they don't, you better believe when we, the panel, explain what it is, it helps, because now there's certification to be a certified virtual presenter, of which I decided to become, and I think a couple of you are also. Anything that we do to show our E for expertise, that we're taking it seriously, because there's so many people that call themselves speakers, coaches, but you're asking me why I think it's such a good thing to get, besides everything else that everybody else is saying on the panel. It elevates you against another speaker if the meeting planner understands CSP, understands what it is. It does help. Not all the time, of course not, but I've had it. It's been a competitive edge for me.
Great. And who else has a good reason why everyone who is going to be viewing this video or even thinking about viewing it, what's the advantage of having a CSP?
I'll speak to myself. As a young woman, I experienced imposter syndrome, and that was something that I never want to feel again. And I think when we go to the market and we know that we have the highest certification that we can earn in our industry, it says something to our soul. So how I present myself is different than, I can do a real good job for you. And I'm a certified speaking professional. And I think that that comes across not only in our marketing materials, but how we carry ourselves in the conversations that we have with meeting planners. And for those who don't know it, it's a wonderful opportunity for them to say, why is that? And I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to the person who has the certification when there are two people in front of me. It can be, again, that competitive edge that Joyce was talking about. I'll always pick the person who's done the work to get the earned designation.
Absolutely. When I decided to get my CSP, I didn't know I was a speaker then, but Joaquin de Posada, my first mentor, told me, Guri, if you know, most psychologists are boring, get the CSP and they know you won't be. So, okay. So that's why I got it too, as a certification of not being as boring as they might hope as a psychologist. So there are all sorts of reasons. Now, how about if two of you, or if all of you have something, how do you leverage your CSP? How do you use your CSP to help you make a stronger business, speaking business?
I was going to say mine is so new. I haven't quite figured out all the leverage points yet, but to really echo something that Shireen said, you know, I have noticed in just this brief window of time of having achieved the CSP that it has given me really a different level of confidence when I'm talking with somebody about a presentation, because I do feel like they could bring in their neighbor across the street who has some expertise in the topic, or they could work with somebody who's certified, and it definitely has had an effect on my presentation, just of, you know, my own capability for them.
Well, good. Well, I have a question. Many of us, when we filled out our CSP application for our clients, got engagements from that because they remembered us and they reached out. Did you get any new engagements because of this process?
I've had some of my clients reach out to me, and yes, and I think, yeah, I did actually get a couple of new engagements. I think they see me as, you know, I have a stamp of approval on my forehead that I didn't have before, and they feel like, oh, that's right, we did enjoy that. So yes, that was helpful.
All right. Anyone else using their CSP, sir?
So it's a maybe a slightly different take on how to leverage the CSP. So because I have a CSP, because I've gone through this evaluation process, it continues to encourage me to keep growing, keep learning, and to make sure that as soon as I become comfortable with something, that then I push beyond it. So one of the tasks that I've given myself, and I'm sort of jumping ahead to some of your questions here,
That's
is
right.
that in the COVID environment, since there is more time, I'm trying to pick areas within my presentation, trying to read between 50 and 100 articles on just one aspect
Wow.
so that basically I can take it to another level. So for example, what's the optimum amount of time you should have in a Zoom meeting before you have a break or you do something? And what's the research on that? Where should you position yourself in the Zoom box? What's the research on that? So it's a way for me to say, okay, so if I am the certified speaking professional, then I have to do continuing education. So I have to keep learning, not just to meet a requirement to say, yeah, I attended a conference and I get to count those as credits, but it's actually much more of what are the things, for example, so this has always been big for me, what are some of the things that speakers say that just aren't true? And where does it come from? And why do people keep saying it? Why do they keep perpetuating it? So the leveraging, if you will, of the CSP, and again, I'm not sure which is chicken egg in that one. Probably having the CSP is causing me then to go do the research some more, but leveraging the CSP, and maybe it gives myself permission to do that. But that's somewhat as I look at the CSP. One other benefit of the CSP, you get to go to CSP, CPAE sessions within the national meeting. And I have to admit, not having the CSP, I thought it was pretty snobbish of them when they did it. And I thought, well, that's kind of elitist, that's kind of exclusionary. And then I got the CSP and I could go to these meetings. And I still sort of had that little bit of a chip on my shoulder, but then all of a sudden it was like, the conversation for me jumped way up, partly because you knew everybody in that room had gone through the same process. Now what they were talking about was very specific then to targeted expertise, targeted eloquence, targeted enterprise, targeted ethics. And so it was just one more benefit to that sort of smorgasbord of information that you get at a national meeting. It was like, wow, this is really focused. You also get to go to the CSP/CPAE Summit, and that's a much smaller group even that would be at national, and that's incredibly intense. And it's just in terms of accelerating one's movement in especially the enterprise part, it's pretty amazing. So thank you.
I've only been to one summit and it changed my life.
Wow.
It was amazing, just amazing.
I was going to add one other thing with leveraging. It was very interesting to me that when I got my CSP, I started getting many more speaker bureau bookings. And so I think that that just came into play in being more attractive to them and being somebody that they put forward. So.
All right. So that's good. So what are you guys doing to let people know you have a CSP? How are you showcasing that as an asset? And how are you educating the world that it means something?
Well, I in my bio, my intro that I send to people that they put in their newsletters, it's in there. On my website, what is a CSP? There's a little section there. Do I call clients and say, hi, I'm a CSP, you better talk to me? No. But every time I end up talking to a new client, you better believe the certification gets into the conversation, because both Shireen and April said something that I forgot to share with this group. It's the CSP, what it does. Let's think of the word that starts with a C, confidence. It gives us confidence. And I know one of the questions, what are you doing these days, which I'll wait, because there's so many new things. I have more confidence in my ability as a master coach and speaker and trainer than I ever have had in my life. So is it the CSP? Sure. Is it this? Sure. A little. As John said, everything that we do to get better for us and our clients it helps us just elevate, elevate, elevate. We just don't stop. We can't stop. And why should we? Because it's an exciting time right now. As long as we're okay, obviously.
So speaking about that, John spoke to it a bit already. So many of the speakers I've been talking to, I'm the past chair of the CSP committee, and so people reach out to me with curiosity and inquiries, and a good deal of fear because the speaking industry is changing because of COVID. It brings new opportunities, but it certainly changes things, doesn't it? So what have you all been doing differently now that we are facing this pandemic and doing more virtual? What are you doing to use your CSP and build your business?
I reached out. I'd made a decision to niche in a different way than I previously had. I sent out an email offer right in the middle, like second week of April, when the lockdown had just kind of started. I sent out an offer to a niche target group, offering them if they booked within the next 2 weeks, that within the next 4 weeks, I would give them a free presentation. And so I did 30 webinars in a 5-week period, which is why I have this office, because I couldn't count on my internet at home. So I rented an office and came here and just sat here like for hours every day doing webinars for all these groups. And they were not paying me. But what's happened now is the word spread, and now I've been invited to speak at their conferences. They asked me for an online course, which I then created, and now I'm running the online course. And I feel like I'm on have this momentum that I never would have had, because I don't think I would have reached out and made that offer if I thought I should do things the way I had been doing them. I just felt like I needed to do something to help people. And so I reached out, and now I feel like they're reaching back at me, and it's been a really incredible experience. They asked me to be one of their speakers for a 10,000 person event that's coming up in September.
Congratulations.
Yes.
All virtual.
And so anyone who's listening who already has their CSP, or if they don't, please feel free to reach out to any of us to find out more about what we're saying and how we did it and how it works and all of that. And someone has suggested we do another follow-up workshop on more the nitty-gritty, filling out the application, getting gigs to make sure that we have enough presentations to meet the criteria, things like that. There's lots going on, and we have lots of interesting things happening now in our chapter. Anyone else doing something that is been invited by the COVID situations? I find when our world changes, we have to get creative. Who else has come up with something that might be of service to someone else listening?
Well, I have a few little hints behind me. In February, when all of this started, we all knew something had to happen, and it just fell in my lap. A few groups from National Speakers Association that I decided to join. A Video Rockstars is one of them. And from there, I learned, which April is doing, how to create a course called Kick Conflict to the Curb. And what has happened in these last few months is it dawned on me, my real love and my real skill have always been coaching instead of speaking. So I am now doing coaching and training. And of course I'm going to speak when somebody wants, but I turn it in more into a workshop, because that's what I'm more of a trainer and coach than I've been a keynoter for 30 years. It was fun at the time. So the new stuff is meeting new people, new masterminds, new classes. I mean, if anybody here ever wants to reach out, email. I mean, Bob Pike, I took a class. These are names that have been in NSA for years. on online classes, so many people in that. This is the time for us to do this. And
It
I'm happy.
is.
It really is. So yeah.
And I want to remind everyone that training is speaking. So some
Yes.
people are keynoters and some people are
Yes.
trainers. And as we grow as a profession, we're doing a better job of defining what is a professional speaker and what does it look
Mhm.
like? What do they do? And we're getting better at noticing different business models as part of the professional speaking world. So that's kind of
Absolutely.
cool. Anyone else has a COVID tip?
I would just like to say that if you had asked me in February if I would do a virtual presentation, I would have said no, find somebody else. That somebody else will be better at
Mhm.
that. And I would have been very comfortable with letting that business go by. And one of the things that COVID has done is forced us to change and to grow. And to my absolute delight, I love speaking to a camera as much as to an audience. And so I always thought what I fed off of was audience energy. And I love audience energy and reading them and making them laugh. But what I figured out that I love even more is helping people have concrete skills. So I was meeting with a meeting planner today who's doing their speaker selection. And my marketing says that I provide high content, high touch, high impact presentation. And she's like, well, how do you do high touch? And part of it that I talked with her about is I show up and I take them on a journey. And through that journey, we're going to touch their heartstrings and we're going to provide them with information that they're going to remember the stories and different things. And they were very, very intrigued by that because a lot of speakers, she's like, yeah, our last speaker wasn't comfortable. And I've had another speaker bureau who came to me and she's like, I want you to do this because the last one did not do a good job. And Ann Bonnie is one of the moderators right now. She and a group of us got together and practiced so that we had some confidence to go along with the competence. And it's been a joy for me. And so what I would say to you is if you haven't yet embraced this, figure out how to be fully alive, fully engaged, fully present so that we can provide that high contact, high touch, high impact work that we should be doing, in my opinion, all of us.
And then we should read Dr. Maladar's white paper on how long can we go without a bio break, right?
I know, that was the first thing I thought
mean,
is, oh dear
so-
God, cut down my learning
John, have
curve.
we already gone too long? I mean, really, how long is it?
So we've actually gone way over it. So so I'm going to suggest because of that, to make this more brain friendly, let's hear from Jason and Ann and Lisa and Suzanne, questions they have, thoughts they have, because we can continue to kind of go blah, blah, blah. But if it doesn't impact where they want to go. So let's, if you don't mind, Doc, we'll just.
No, I don't mind at all. All right, what you got? And unmute yourselves and just ask the question. We're in meeting mode.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with it. Shireen, you talked a little bit about pitfalls in keeping the process going. What do you recommend as far as once we start and we're keeping track of stuff, like what do you recommend?
So I printed them off for you today. The NSA website page has the CSP guideline. It has every rule in here. If anything isn't clear, Marguerite would probably be the best person to talk to since she's just the outgoing chair. But I talked to people, I called NSA. I wanted to make sure that I was doing it accurately. And so this is the first thing that I would say is know this. But then the second thing that it has is the information we should be collecting, which I didn't collect. I'm one of those people, it's like, oh, I've got all that stuff. And then when I'm ready to start doing it, because I did not keep good records and I didn't know that I needed the size of the audience, if I had like a X amount day, but it was 4 presentations that I needed to break that into 4 different amounts of money that I was paid, all the little details that have to be submitted. I did not have those and I had gaps. And it took me over a work day for every year to go back. And all I can say is there was a real point of pride in watching how my business grew because I went back and I had contracts that I signed, the other person didn't sign, and I didn't even have the title of the presentation. I'm like, well, we're not using that one. And I had no idea who to go back to. And so please, if it's your dream, keep the records along the way. It's so simple to do. I use eSpeakers is where all of mine is located. And for me, that was worth the extra money to have that function and to have that be a secretary for me. And I just really encourage you to keep the notes along the way, because it's not easy to go back and piece it together. That was excruciatingly painful to me. And I just thought, oh, if I had only known. So it took a lot longer than I thought.
As Shireen has said, go to the NSA website, download the application, take a look at it, breathe in and out, and then download the Excel chart that tells you what you need. And then for the rest of your life, you can use that as a guide. I still use that as a guide for keeping track of what I do and for whom, how many people, etc. It's an interesting exercise. Part of expertise is knowing our own business, and part of enterprise is tracking it. So I think it makes a lot of sense to do that. And what Dr. McHenry was talking about was that you get points for each presentation to a different audience, or the same presentation for different audiences. And the audiences have to be of different sizes. So if you're at a workshop and a conference and you're doing 4 different presentations to the same audience, that counts as 4 presentations, right? And so every year they do change, the CSP and NSA group. They're always trying to listen to everyone's feedback and trying to make things better. And we have Mary Lou, who is our head of the NSA, is working real hard at making us an independent certifying body, so that even if someone is not a member of NSA, they can maintain their CSP. So that's one of the things that keeps it from being a true certification. It has to be separate. And that way anyone can do that. So keep those records. All right, who else has a question for this amazing gang?
I do.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Alrighty, my question is, once you're qualified as a CSP, are you always qualified as a CSP? Do you have to renew, like, do you have to do so much every year?
You have to renew it. They're working on changing some of that, but you do have to renew it. I think it's every 3 years right now.
Every 5.
You can lose, is it 5 now? Okay, and you can lose it in a heartbeat if you're unethical. And if you remove yourself or are late from paying your NSA membership or no longer join, you can lose it as well. So they're changing it, and I'm not always up to date anymore since I'm the outgoing chair. So keep posted. Every September they post the new updates of what it would take to be a CSP. So Suzanne, I'm looking forward to helping you with your application. She's part of the speaker lab. She's one of our rock stars. And Lisa Roach, yeah. So other questions?
Well, and I would add on, I don't ever want to go through that process again. So every year I get on the NSA page and I reread the updates to make sure that I'm going to be able to renew, because that was a laborious process for me. Happy to do it once. Just call me stupid if I had to do it twice.
So some of the mistakes that have been made is people forget that part of the 4 E's is ethics, which is professionalism. So you can't blame NSA for not knowing your new email. You can't blame your secretary for not telling you. Part of being a professional is putting on our big girl and big boy pants and red shoes and, you know, following what it is we need to do. And a lot of people get pretty testy and unpleasant when they've made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Maybe there's a solution, but keeping on track of our own certifications is a way of making sure the brand has value for us and for everyone else. So I urge everyone to just check on it. And if not, become part of a group where you help each other be on top of that.
Well, and one thing that I did was I made sure that I had a credit card so that my membership auto renews, because if you let it last, then you have problems, not willing. So
if those requirements change every September, do you have to just maintain those new changes, or is that just for new people?
The year that you apply is the application you need to be able to complete successfully. Okay. So if you're going to be applying for this year, the September application is what you need to master. and meet all those criteria, right?
How long does it typically take someone to meet that criteria? I imagine depending on the enterprise, if that's
But it takes at least
factor.
5 years because you
5
have
years.
to perform a certain amount of presentations and money in 5 years. And right now it's 5 out of 10 years. And it doesn't have to be consecutive. So it allows for you to take that year off to follow a rock band, or to take care of your mama when she's sick, or to learn from Jason and become his groupie, which I think I might in my next life. I haven't decided. So that's that. Good question, Gerald. So I'm looking forward to helping you for your application as well. It's a tedious application and it requires much dark chocolate, but it can be done. So
Easier to do along the way, as I've already said, than to have to go back and find needles in haystacks.
if not, you can hire someone to help you go back and figure it out and do it ethically. And there are some ethical blunders. So some people are short and they ask a bunch of people, okay, guys, I'm short. So Suzanne, Joyce, Jason, Shireen, please come and I'm gonna do a presentation and you pay me $5 and we call that a presentation. Well, that's just not ethical because it's not a real professional gig, is it? So when we get desperate is when we see how our ethics are truly challenged and what's in place and what isn't. So there are some tricky ways to handle the application. And if you have questions, I'm always glad. NSA is really excellent at answering the questions, and they have a CSP committee, and they're always delighted to answer questions. And you just call and say, I have a CSP question. If I know the answer, I'm glad to give it, but things are changing all the time, and I'm not going to be on the committee anymore, so you need someone who's current. Other questions, guys, about getting that CSP?
Shireen, how long did it take you? And also April, same question. To get your CSP.
I had to, I went back to 2013 is what I did. So, and I got it in 2019. So I don't know how long that took. For me, the enterprise was the hardest part. I had eloquence, ethics come pretty naturally once I know what they are. I certainly broke those as a beginning speaker. We don't know what we don't know. So grateful for truth tellers in my life and learning. But for me, it was the 50,000 a year for X number of years. And then once I mastered the business end of things, and that was really fun to watch that grow every single year. And then I just had to make sure I had 250 presentations.
For
Shireen,
some
did you
people
find that?
Huh?
I was asking Shireen, did she find that her business started to take off when she zoned in on her expertise? Like, did you pivot to being the people doctor?
I worked with a branding person who came to NSA Michigan, and I had never been able to articulate what I did, which was very, very frustrating to me, because if I could get on a stage, magic would happen. But what do you do? You know, and it's like, you just don't sound real eloquent if you can't even tell somebody succinctly what you do. And the minute that we got the people like you expert, it was the umbrella, and I'm like, oh, I own that. I get it. I can tell people what that is. And that made a huge trajectory change. It's a wonderful question. Yeah, and the money just followed that as well, and the bookings.
And Lisa, you and I've had conversation about this before, but once you're paying attention to the money aspect and you have a goal that you need to make this amount of money, the 50,000, so you can get it, somehow it emboldens us to think about money and to ask for it in a proper way. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing once it's abundance. I mean, once you get comfortable, it's certainly easier to do it again and again. And our friends always can help us practice those conversations about talking about the things that we're least comfortable with, whether it's an ethical dilemma or a problem with asking for money or getting paid what we deserve or what we've earned. You know, things like that. So Lisa, did you have a question, ma'am?
Me, another question? I do. I wanted to know, does everyone have a book that is a CSP? I know April, all of you do. Mm-hmm. And do you find that really helps with business? I still don't have a book, and I'm wondering you have one, get over it, right, Anne? I see you. Get
I don't
over it.
think
So I
you
don't
need
have a book. Get over it.
I don't think you need a book to do it, but I think that if you have a book, you look smarter. And I think people like to have a book, and they like to have you sign it. And even if you don't charge much, it does seem to help gigs. You guys have the same thought that a book helps? Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
how it
Dr.
legitimizes you. I
Polidor?
don't know why.
I don't know, but I don't know if your experience is like mine. You get more rock star status from a book than a PhD, which kind of cracks me up. They both took work, obviously, but I'm kind of like, okay, people just, there's something about being an author. And one of the nice things is in that 50,000 a year, day of book sales goes into that amount. And so it becomes a nice way to boost what, if you, even if you have a lower fee, if you're selling back of room books, then that goes up and that number
Or
gets.
even back of room other services, it counts up to 1 minute before midnight.
And something else to Lisa, to answer your question is, of course, it helps in our pocketbooks when we sell books. I'm finding the best part of writing a book is when I send it free to a prospect and they go nuts. Just, I mean, still now. And I wrote Take the Ride of Your Life years ago. They just love it. An autographed copy from the author. And then, of course, they'll say, hey, could you sell these? But that's not even, I do it more because I want to, this is who I am, so you'll know. So Lisa, yeah, I mean, and I agree, you don't need one. I mean, if you, a lot of people don't have books and their success. I mean, I personally think I'm going to throw this in. This has nothing to do with the conversation, but I'm going to throw it in because we're talking to my NSA Michigan people. And some of you I know, I don't. The one thing that's going to get us business, yeah, social networking is important. Picking up that darn phone. This week, I decided to sell the class because it's starting September 15th. I did something really unusual. I went, it's almost like my CSP list of all my clients who I haven't spoken to in years, call them up. Some of them aren't around anymore for many reasons, but the ones that have, this week alone, I got 2 bookings. That's to tell them about that. So if you don't get anything else from this panel, people, and you may say, oh my God, but I got nothing to offer. Just if you call up and you say, how are you? And and then you know they're going to ask you. But the CSP, there's no guarantee, and there's no guarantee that you're going to succeed with it, but you're going to succeed with it if you do all the other things like continuously learn. Don't forget your clients. You know, that's all I got to say.
And Lisa, in our chapter, we have Ken, who can help anyone think about a book and make it simple. How do you say his last name? What is it?
Spurger.
Watsberger. He's amazing. He's very generous with time. He's reasonable. You just talk to someone who knows about books, and you'll find out. You have several books if you want to.
Yes,
Sir?
I've worked with him on some books for some
Good.
course books, but not book.
Well,
Yeah, he's great.
that's perfect. Then you already know that he's amazing. Okay, John, what did you have to say, sir?
A good friend, colleague of mine in NSA many years ago pointed out that she felt, we'll keep it mystery, that many NSA speakers had written more books than they had read. So my only caveat is, if you're going to write a book, make sure that it's a good book. And how do you figure out it's a good book? Is when people start coming up to you after your presentations and ask you, do you have a book? Then you know you're probably onto something. I've seen a ton of speakers then write a book, nobody's asked for it, and then nobody wants it. And so I think that's equally bad. You can also then talk to a lot of people to figure out, should you self-publish, should you go with a major publisher? There's advantages to each. But I think ultimately, the book is another sign of certification, that you've gone through some process in some way to then have your ideas come forward, and that you've actually taken the time to put it in a book format. And so, do you need it? No. To Shireen's point, to me, it's more of a business card these days, similar to what Joyce was saying. It's like you hand it out, and they're like, wow. And so for me, it's kind of the new business card, if you will, in terms of sharing the book. But clearly, it's got to be a book that they want. Should be tied to your expertise. And so there's different ways to go about it. But again, writing a book for the sake of writing a book, to me, is not part of a certification process. You don't need one for the certification process. Quick side note, every 5 years, you do have to renew for the CSP. You get credit for the number of national conventions that you attend. We're also working on that if you wrote a book, you get credit. There's different ways then to get, if you will, continuing education credits to prove that you're still viable to have the CSP. Right now, if you leave NSA, you lose your CSP. So it's not a lifelong designation. But because other certification processes that are much stronger than ours is looking at that, if once you earn it, you have it, and then you have to do CEs to keep it. My money is going to be on that NSA is going to move in that direction, because as Margarita said, that you don't need to be a member. We want to go to, you don't need to be a member of NSA to get the CSP. Right now, you have to be a member for at least 12 months.
Consecutive, yeah.
Yeah, but my guess is that's going to go away. Thanks.
Yeah, Mary Lou's working on that to add more rigor to it. And the other thing is they're working on various lifetime and retired status, so that, let's say someone's been a CSP all their lives and now they're not able to get the qualifications for renewal, so that maybe can get retired. So they're working on all sorts of possibilities to help everyone along. All right, so we have 3 minutes left. In that time, I'm going to ask each of you to quickly, and I know for speakers is dangerous, so I'm giving you the mic, one thing that you would do or not do again if you were going to be starting all over. Ready? So let's just go Shireen. I'll call out the name. Shireen.
Keep your records as you go.
April.
I would say don't stress about it too much. Work on it and have it in your sights, but don't stress too hard on it.
Joyce.
Believing in ourselves and not letting us fall stop us.
John.
When we came up with the 4 E's, we had to reject a couple other E's. So I would pay attention to the ones that we rejected. One was egocentric. So we took that. The other was just straight up eccentric. And the last one was embarrassment. So the whole sense of why you would get a CSP and why it's tied to the 4 E's is you don't want to embarrass yourself. You don't want to embarrass the profession. You don't want to embarrass other colleagues. So if we move off of sort of the ego-driven to more of a service-driven, I think it helps you in this process, because you do get to see, you know, I actually have a body of work. I've made a difference in people's lives. I can document it. And then I can go through both an external and internal review that validates the process that you've gone through. So that would be my advice. Thank you.
And my final words of wisdom, one mistake that I made is I didn't ask people for enough help. I felt I had to do it all by myself. And now know there are so many lovely people who are generous with their time and will help you think things through. So ask, make sure you have something to give back in another way if you can, but ask. And I think NSA is about Cabot and that pie, making the pie bigger. Everyone's helping each other. So NSA Michigan and the board wanted to thank all of you for, so Dr. Shireen McHenry, April Birchmeyer, the brand new CSP, Joyce Weiss, and one of my favorites, Dr. John B. Molidor. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us on Zoom and help us violate the bio break laws for Zoom. And we'll get better with that next time. Yes. Thank you all of you for attending. And tomorrow we have Speaker Lab. Yay! So we've gone from weekly to monthly. Suzanne, I'm hoping you're going to be there. And I'm hoping that Gerald will be there. There's some of the regulars. Please join us. It's an amazing bunch of brilliant people that are experts who are just becoming professional speakers in every sense of the word. So please join us. And what time is it, Suzanne? Do you remember?
It's now 12 to 1, right?
It's high noon, because
That's
many
right.
of the things in life that are good are at high noon. So
I'm going to be there. I didn't register yet, but I plan on being there.
Well, you can register, and it's also in the NSA NSA Michigan Facebook page. I'll put in an email with a registration link. Please do join us at high noon.
All right.
And thank you, everyone. And let's again an applause for April. And then let's applaud for the people who are going to be applying in the fall. Ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you all. You take care. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much, Margarita.
Oh,
Yeah, I
my-
just want to say you are a fabulous moderator. Excellent
thanks.
questions. Well done. I really enjoyed it. And I'm
Thank
glad
you,
we're
Lisa.
taping it because other people can, I don't know how we disseminate the tapes or the recordings,
I
but
think they'll put the link in the NSA Michigan chapter.
okay.
And we had, I mean, it was an amazing group. You can see why I love Dr. Molidor so much. I mean, he brings a depth to materials, and he certainly does not have those egotistical ease, does he? So it's amazing. Lisa, you have lots of books in you.
Yeah, on my wall, fake wall, right?
Well, you're fake, but you do not have to have fake books. You have lots of books in you.
Yeah,
And if you need someone to talk to, call me up.
I will.
But Ken
Okay.
already knows your stuff,
Yeah,
and
Well,
he is one of the most resourceful guys I have ever met.
yeah. Well, what I like, what you said about Dr. John, is it John Molidor?
Dr. John B. Molidor.
Yeah, Dr. Molidor. When he said, are people asking you if you have a book? That hit me, struck me as, wow, that's a good way to think. So what do I really have inside of me that I really want to share? You mentioned your body of work. What is it I truly want to share that people would say, wow, you're really good at that and I want to know more. I do a lot of stuff.
Why don't you join our speaker lab tomorrow? We'll address that.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you said
because-
12 to 1, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if you have time to join or not, but maybe you could, no, some other time then come and join us and tell us about the showcase stuff. And
Yeah,
that
I've got
works,
a keynote tomorrow. Otherwise, I would. And
well, just whenever you have time
Alright.
to come. All right, guys, and congratulations,
you.
Ann. I'm just so impressed and happy for you.
thanks.
Yes.
And you know what? And she's our president.
I know, right? So
I know, we know how to choose,
That's right.
From
Great leader.
Rita
She
to
really
me
is.
to Ann, and then Jason's next. We got it going.
Yes.
It's
I'm
very
happy to
good.
be a part of it.
At least I'll be after that.
No.
I am too. It's such a nice group.
No.
It's just such a nice group of people.
Yeah.
All
it is.
right, you guys
Okay.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Be safe and have fun.
Okay.
Bye.